Hey guys, so yeah, I didn't do a review last week of Metamorphosed to Malleability Shift slash 248 chapter, that is Shift slash chapter 248. Mainly because I was tired working, and of course it was a little colder last week in the evening when you're walking home. But I figured, as usual, or as I've done before, I will kind of catch you up to speed here. Now, at the end of 247, Briella basically was pretty much in the hands of some kids on a farm. And they were about to kind of have their way with her, kind of cut the strings on her balloons and whatever. So she had to figure out a way to get out of this predicament. Well, 248 picks up where that's about to happen. And just when it looks like the kids are about to basically have their way, they get called to dinner by one of the kids' grandma. And they go to dinner, leaving the stuff behind and everything. And Briella basically finds this as the opportunity she was looking for, and basically demorphs into liquid, basically liquefies herself into a puddle and gathers all the other pieces of her, because she basically in 246 basically took her balloon testing to another level. And she allowed her fiance to basically give her the opportunity to float around as multiple balloons instead of one. Well, anyway, she takes the opportunity to escape. She notices that the grandma that owns the farm is kind of an artist. She basically is a junk artist that makes sculptures out of junk. And she takes the opportunity to mimic one of them and keeps that statue, if you will, in her mind for something later. Anyway, she decides that, look, kids, it's been fun, it's been real, but I'm not going to stay here. Now, she does feel a ping of guilt a little bit, because it's like, she's taking away the fun, but, she didn't, show up, she didn't, intend to be a plaything for the kids. So she basically takes off into the night sky as a sparrow, and as a bird-like creature, and that kind of is where we end up here in 249, which is called Pocket Dimension Part 1. Now, the reason it's called Pocket Dimension Part 1 is because 250, it looks like, is going to be about something more interesting, maybe more intimate. We shall see. Anyway, what happens here in Part 1 of 249, the shift chapter, if you will. She arrives back home. She liquefies down into a puddle to squeeze through the crack of the door, and she kind of has to remind herself that the reason things are not kind of organized as she would normally leave them is because she's not leaving any doppelgangers behind anymore due to what happened previously. So she decided to go up stairs, or at least to the bedroom. I think it's the bedroom's downstairs, to her fiance, and she sees her there, and she decides to have a little fun. She flies towards her in the form of a mosquito, and then she decides to liquefy underneath her, around, not underneath, but beneath her feet. She starts to liquefy a little bit, crawling up her fiance's body, and then basically going under one of these sheets that her fiance is lying under, and then basically starts to play with her sensually and arousingly by basically allowing parts of her to go seep into her fiance's underwear or panties, whatever you want to call them. Seeping in there, as well as allow parts of her to go into a certain, as Michelle DeviantART describes it, cavern, in that area. Anyway, it basically is, Briella's just basically, arousing, having a little fun with Crystal, which kind of awakens Crystal a little bit, not much. It's kind of like a sleepy awake. It's like you're asleep, but you get woke up, and then you just, say stuff and everything. So she's just giving her a little bit of fun. And then afterwards, she decides to go to the living room. She reforms back into human, goes back to the living room, almost in a cartoony fashion. And then this is where she decides, where do I mimic, where can I mimic the statue she saw at the farm? And when she realizes that, well, the living room is probably not the best place for it, she finally decides maybe eventually, with Crystal's help, the backyard could be a good option. Anyway, she decides to melt down into liquid mercury puddle, and go into a deep meditation, kind of a relaxation, with the moon reflecting off her puddled surface. But then she starts to think about something she left behind, which was something like a stopwatch or something, and she goes to where she left it and grabs it, by extending an arm, basically forming an arm out of her puddled form, to grab it. And then she reforms herself. But then she starts getting an idea about, because she wishes, because when she grabs the stopwatch device, she kind of wonders and wishes she could have a place to store it. And then she starts realizing, wait a minute, why can't I probably store it with me? In other words, store it within me. So she comes up with this little idea to experiment on, where she rummages through some junk in a junk drawer or something, finds a cork, like a wine cork, cuts it, basically extends her body, because she's elastic and all that as well, extends her body up to her lab, cuts part of the cork down, and then she decides to test out her theory where she shapeshifts, turns herself into a spear, and then brings the cork within her, kind of hides it within her, and has it go through, like, I guess, described as doors and corridors, doors, whatever. And long story short, her tests turn out to be a success, because she pulls the cork back out of her, reforms back into human. And again, she looks at what she has done as a success, because now she's realizing, there are possibilities here. And those possibilities are, pleasable to her, I guess, as well as even, something she could utilize for future missions, maybe ideas. And if you're wondering what Pocket Dimension, why this was called Pocket Dimension Part 1, is because of the fact that it deals with the idea that Briella's powers as a shape-shifting elastic slime girl and all that, goo girl, have evolved so much that now she can exist within herself, or her and Crystal can exist within herself. Maybe for a limited time, but it's something that they can do. I mean, we kind of got an idea that maybe this was something she could do, back in the final chapters of the Winter Vacation arc. So it's not surprising that, she wants to probably want to explore this more and see how much more evolved her powers have gotten. And since now she's realizing, as we get alluded to in the story, that she can do more now. She can store not just regular items like her phones and little knickknacks here and there within her body, but that she could also now use her body as a different, living scape, basically a different environment, world. And like I said, we kind of got an idea of that during Winter Vacation, when she pretty much spread herself across the cabin they were staying in, and basically turned it into different kinds of worlds, like a different planet and outer space, underwater, where she would portray herself as different creatures, role-playing as if they're meeting Crystal for the first time. So she's done something like this before, but it's basically where she would expand herself across a room and change that room at her will. Here, the evolution of it is, she can actually do this within herself. She can actually do this within herself. And another example about this too is she had already done this during the summer arc too. They did a summer arc where she kind of turned into like a submarine, not a submarine, but she basically, went out on a boat or something like that, with Crystal, and she wanted to explore the aquatic life underwater. And then, of course, eventually that led to some intimacy between them when she turned herself into a gooey submarine that went underwater with Crystal. And let's just say they had some fun, if you catch my drift. So we kind of got, like I said, we kind of had clues, and everything here and there that something like this was very, very possible. But now it looks like with Michelle, aka DeviantART, that's DEZZIE Arts, what she's doing, honestly, is taking it up to another level to where now not Crystal, but Briella can now create in basically an entire different, atmosphere, a different dimension world within herself. So you can only imagine the NFSW-like fun she would probably put Crystal through with Briella. You can only imagine that. Where Briella and Crystal could really get intimate in ways, I'm assuming Crystal probably didn't think were possible now that she'd be existing with, she'd be able to exist within a dimension, within a world created by Briella, and not just created because she expands herself across a room or across a boat or something like that and makes it an extension of herself, but instead it's herself, period. And that sounds really intriguing. And I could definitely see 250 being something like that. Now, we probably do have a Valentine's Day story coming up, maybe. I'm not really saying we aren't, but we'll see. We shall see. But yeah, so far, this is an interesting little take because, of course, the title of the chapter/shift, will catch you off guard a little bit. It will surprise you. But then you, as you read the story, you kind of get the idea of, oh, now we know what they're talking about. Now we know it means, Briella evolving enough with her powers now to where she can exist within herself. Like she could have her own privacy within her own world. Not just in the lab in her apartment, but basically her own world. Like she could become a big old spear, as described in the story, and then she could just walk around in it like, she's walking around a room, like she's living in a different world. So yeah, this is a nice little, surprise that she's putting in there. And again, we can only imagine what she has in store for Briella when she presents it to Crystal and what fun they could potentially have. I mean, we kind of get an idea that, at the beginning of this one, with Briella doing what she did with Crystal while she's asleep, I think we kind of get the idea that we're heading in that direction, especially with 250 and a potential Valentine's Day story. But we'll see. But overall, I liked it. I liked the little pocket dimension, evolution of Briella's powers. It's like another step and everything. And you know what? When you really think about it, this might even help, as I've suspected and felt and believed, this might even help with Crystal gaining powers very similar or identical to Briella because of something like this. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's just my opinion, because it seems like we get little hints here and there that Crystal wants to have something similar, if not identical. Overall, like I said, the story was good. The other one, the previous week, was good. It was just a conclusion to the filler story that we had. This is a nice, step in another direction of unexpectedness, and can't wait to see what she has in mind next week. Can't really wait, because to me, that's going to seem really, really interesting to see where she takes it next, in my opinion. But overall, I like it. I like where we're going with this. And we'll see what she's got. In store. I still stand by, some of the things I've said. Like I mentioned, I still believe Crystal will have powers or gain powers similar, if not identical, to Briella's. I still think Elanie, her, Briella's best friend's fiance, Vincent, Victor, whatever his name is, I think he has something to do with what's going on, with Genesis and stuff like that. And maybe we find out Elanie knows it too, but that's why she kept, Briella a secret from Victor, from her fiance. So I know we're gonna see. I know, in my opinion, And from a speculation standpoint, I know we're going to probably find out that he knows something, and that Ilani, knows it too, and that's why she is keeping Brielle's secret, as I mentioned. I know we're going to probably get that other being, that Alpha, that showed up several chapters ago. I know he's going to come back. I know Duncan's going to play a role in revealing, probably knowing more than they're letting on, and such. And yeah, I just think a lot of things are going to happen. Obviously, the wedding's going to be held off to at least 275, I'd assume at the latest. But we'll see. We'll see. Overall, though, I like what she's bringing to the table here, that being Michelle does the arts with the story, and cannot wait to see what she has in store next week for the 250th chapter / shift. Congratulations on that, Michelle. It's a long time coming. Let's see what you have in store. Maybe it's a Valentine's Day special one-off, and you continue Pocket Dimension the following week, or maybe you give us 2 for 1 in 1 week. We'll see. But overall, I enjoyed the story, and that's all I can say, guys. So till next time, I'll talk to y'all later.